I was a father of 7, and my youngest was just 6 months old. So Tuesday night was the night for me to be on that train. And as we were left New Hyde Park, I guess, it was in between New Hyde Park and Maryland Avenue, that's when the shooting started. And I was at the western end of the car. So Ferguson was in the last seat on the western end, that 6-seat section. And he got up and started shooting. And, you know, you hear noise in the background when you're reading and you're concentrating on something. It sounded like, that's odd. Was that firecrackers? And then people started screaming, realized there was a shooting, and everybody kind of went down. I wasn't the only guy in the doorway. There was a lot of people. So we kind of all went down to the floor, and the shooting stopped. And when it was quiet and people got up, I looked around. I could see blood all over the floor from the seating area where everybody had been shot. I got up off the floor like everybody else, and I headed east up the center aisle to get away from where the shooting was taking place. And shooting started again, and turned around and saw the shooter coming up at me. Nobody was between me and him. So I kept going to the east end of the car, and when I got there, the doors open in, so people were piled up against it. Now, I guess in the panic, everybody rushed forward, and especially probably when the shooting started again, I don't know, but there was no room to go anywhere. I was like last guy in line, so there were people in the doorways there, which didn't look really attractive either. So I just went down on the floor and you know, covered my head as best I could, you know, thinking, you know, you just don't want to get hit in the head. At the very end, when it was clear I had nowhere to go, that people were getting killed, I was like, man, this is not what I thought would happen. You know, father of 7 kids. This is really, and it was like almost like a prayer. Like, really, this is it. So, you know, thank God I came to. I could see the damage that was done. I was like, well, I'm alive. I put my hand up and seeing a lot of blood. It's like, okay, don't bleed to death now. Like, you're alive. Let's just get off the train and, you know, fix this. The worst shot came through my hand. It destroyed my left thumb and then wound up in my neck and in my mouth. Actually, I had to remove it from my tongue, which is kind of odd. But and then I had fragment wounds across my back. He was using those black Talion bullets that explode upon impact. Yeah, it was unusual. I think in the early 90s, no, there wasn't a lot of people going around like, unfortunately, there are nowadays, deciding to vent whatever anger or, you know, mental confusion or whatever their situation is on other people. It just seems strange. We see more and more of that, not just shooters anymore, but, you know, we see every day in New York City random acts of violence, people punching strangers, pushing them in front of subways. People use cars to attack people. There was one on the West Side Highway a few years ago. I think a bunch of tourists got killed. You know, people who want to do violence can use almost anything to do violence, including their own physical strength. And I think that's just a sad commentary of where we've gone as a society. 30 years later, we as a culture, we as a country are in a much worse place than we were. You know, I think everyone was shocked at it at the time, and I think that's what rallied around. Let's do something about it. But unfortunately, what we did was a panacea, not really a solution. And I remember the 60s and 70s, there was a whole revolution, if you would, in mental health care. And I guess there were challenges that had to be addressed and things that had to be corrected, but I think we threw the baby out with the bathwater. Now we have almost no mental health care. We have pharmaceuticals, which we give people, and that's basically it. And I think you see the byproduct of that in culture today, in society today, not just in shootings, in everyday life. The reality is the courage of a couple of my neighbors that went after him when they were unarmed saved more people. There's no question. Their actions saved us, and they put themselves in harm. If there had been an off-duty policeman or somebody who was armed on that train, this would have ended a lot faster. And we can see that happen a lot in society. Most shootings happen by people who could care less what the law is. Guns are easy to get, whether they're legal or illegal. We're kidding ourselves if we think outlawing some type of gun or magically making all these guns go away is going to solve anything. I think we're much better off looking at why are people doing this and what can we do about it. We don't look at that because it's a much harder problem. And people disagree a lot over it and personal freedom and this and that. And oh, I get it. But just because it's hard doesn't mean we shouldn't look at it and try and solve it. I had 7 at the time. My oldest was 12. My youngest was 6 months. And now we've got an 8th. And yeah, we went on with life. You know, as a young guy, I thought I was old at 36. I kind of appreciated more how young I was. But we've been blessed. 5 of them are married. We're up to 19 grandkids, expecting our 20th. And everyone's healthy, and we have wonderful in-laws, and just great grandkids.
And what kind of gratitude do you live with every day?
Yeah, I was raised by my parents to be a faithful person, and I grew up, in my Catholic faith, living every day as a gift. And after something like that, if anything for me, it was a reinforcement of every day was a gift. And I've had difficulties in my life with, losing my job or economic challenges. And I just never let those get me down either. I just, living in faith, good times and bad. There was no reason I shouldn't have been killed as much as anybody else. I was as open and available to him, and the bullet just didn't go where it didn't go. It was a tragedy. We tried to fix it through addressing the obvious way we could quick fix it is, let's just take away guns, as if that would make the problem go away, and it hasn't. Some of these gun laws were passed and were in law for a long time and didn't really change the game. And if anything, the mental health issue and the sickness issue in our culture and the treatment issue of people who are alienated or angry or view themselves as victims, we're doing nothing really for. The broken families that are producing so many kids who are maladjusted, and that's really the problem. And if anything, from my perspective, I think we all ought to be praying more and encouraging our elected officials or electing elected officials who will get more to root causes and not promise panaceas, because there are no panaceas in these things. We didn't get here quickly, and we're not going to get out of it quickly. And danger surrounds us all every day, not just random gunmen. It's a dangerous world. And I'm grateful for every day I'm still kicking in it.